This is Call with Dad's podcast, where today's issues, concerns, and joys of being a dad are discussed, with your hosts E.A. Maynard and Mr. Pancake sharing their views, experiences, and all things they know. Join the journey with us. Welcome to Call with Dads, more than a podcast or a website, but your home for a community of dads who want to be better. Now let's get started.
Yeah, fantastic. I've got my kids can't see the tail. I do have a cat. I have a cat right here in her bed.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm not going to disturb her, so she stays there.
We have 3 cats, and she's the one that likes to be on my lap while I'm talking. Like several of the videos have actually see her walking by. So Alex, you created Fatherhood Reforged, which is an X account that you have. And you also created Dad Schooling, which is a Discord group. And I follow you on X. I've know you from the Discord group of Lord from X, where I originally met you. And then I'm part of your Dad Schooling as well, which has just a ungodly amount of information there. So if somebody doesn't know you, you're becoming what it seems like a major, or I don't know if it's major, but in my opinion, a major voice in the homeschooling community with your social media, with your Discord, and now you're part of a virtual conference as well. How did all this come about? Why did you decide to go these steps to become the homeschooling guy?
Yeah, I like the term major. It might not be as accurate, but I still like the term major. We'll go with that. We'll keep that in. But for those who don't know, I'm a husband, father of 2, both homeschooled, 10-year-old daughter, 8-year-old son. We've been homeschooling for a long time, since birth, basically, as people like to say. It all started when I was asked by my work at the time to move to Toronto, Canada. So my wife came with me and my kids came with me. They were very young at the time. My son was 2. My daughter must have been 5. And my son turned 3 while we were out there. But as part of the visa arrangement we were on, kids couldn't go to school, wife couldn't look for work, anything like that. Not that my wife was, employed by anyone at the time, but it just meant that she then used it as a leap pad, as a springboard to take over their education full time. And it was throughout that period of 6 months that my wife fell in love with it. She really found her purpose. And I always tell people when I'm talking about the origin of us homeschooling and where it all started, when we went to Canada and my wife took over their education, I fell in love with my wife all over again, because it was just like this light that switched on in her and that just shone from her. And she found her purpose, she found her fulfillment, she found what she was looking for. And that's where it really all started. And when we came back then, we fell in love with the lifestyle so much and all the benefits of the lifestyle that we never stopped, that we never looked back. In terms of, and that was way before I started social media. Because I started social media 2021, I think, a year into all the pandemic shenanigans. And I started as an outlet. I didn't even start really talking about homeschooling. I did a little bit here and there. But it was very much a personal endeavor, the social media account was. It was just an outlet to scream into the void about all these things, about fatherhood, about manhood, about masculinity. And that's where a lot of my focus was at the time, and self-improvement, because I was going through a big self-improvement arc myself. And occasionally I tweet about homeschooling, and I talk to other homeschool dads and found connection with them. And from there, it kind of, I took an even deeper dive into what homeschooling meant to us as a family, and really dug deep to understand the multi layers to it, the independence, the freedom, the legacy element to it. the taking back control, the reclamation of fatherhood, the reclamation of motherhood, the restoring of the family, rather than each unit of the family dispersing every day into separate locations and spending a lot of the time on their own. We were all the unit, we were a hub, and it was very empowering for us. And I found that sort of content resonated with a lot of people as well. And then we had over the course of those years a huge boom in homeschooling families and a huge boom in people actually considering it as a genuine option rather than just defaulting to the public school system, which most families still do. But a growing percentage year on year was coming to the terms with the fact that the public school system is failing. It is not serving children. And I mean, they dropped the ball big time over the pandemic years, and children suffered for it even more than they would for being there.
Right.
But that finding those men and finding that community and finding that resonance online, that's where it sort of plateaued for a bit. And I talked a lot about it and I connected a lot about it. And then actually I had this idea percolating in my mind for a while. It's really female dominated because it's usually the moms who stay home, and they're usually the ones, they're the ones that breastfeed, they're the ones that give birth. So it's just that it's in their natural caregiver role. And so a lot of the spaces and a lot of the communities are very female dominated. My wife runs a local co-op for lots of the local homeschooling families, and it is maybe 95% women, 95% mothers, and there might be one or two dads, and that's because they're self-employed and so they can sort of fit it around their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And it just struck me with someone from Lords of X actually posted a shout out to homeschool dads and gained loads of traction. And that was the trigger, because I had that idea in my mind for a while. Wouldn't it be great if we had a community for dads? Big on the whole brotherhood concept. I think men's only spaces have declined much to the degradation of men and women and children.
Right.
And so that was the trigger for me. And I thought, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do it. And it was literally that night. I designed the logo, got the Discord server up, and it was the momentum I needed. And then we had such a huge influx of dads of all situations. We had dads who were doing the homeschooling full time themselves, and their wife worked. And that's just the way the scenario worked out for them. Their wife was in a higher earning job, or we have one guy in there who's very vocal, and he works the farm, and his wife goes out to work in a public school, ironically, but he works the farm, and so he's home with the children, and he works the farm in the morning, and then he homeschools the kids throughout the day. And it really it exploded. It resonated. I got a lot of fulfillment from it because it was beautiful to see all that connection, all that. I don't want to sound egotistical, but so many of the dads were saying, this is great. This is the space we needed. I didn't even know there were other dads who did the homeschooling full time themselves. And now they've met 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in one day. And so that was really where we've got, how I got to where I am today.
Now, as a homeschooling dad myself, and it's funny because like I get on the social things, and like you said, it's 95% women. So if I do something, it's always all these women coming on and saying, well, what's your wife do? And I'm sitting here thinking, she teaches on Saturdays when she's home. I do everything else during the week. I mean, what do you expect? And I work full time. And that's also the other thing is I hear a lot of people say, well, I work and I can't homeschool. And I'm sitting here thinking, lots of people work, and your options are either private schools, which I've made this comment on the show before about some of the horror things I've seen when we looked at private schools, even the Christian or Catholics or the different things like that. They're not much better nowadays than the public schools on some of the issues. They might be a little more focused on certain issues, but they do all these different like issues that you really don't want your kids getting into. at least here in the States, because you're no longer in Canada, right? If I'm not mistaken, you're.
Oh, no, I'm back in the UK. We came
Yeah,
back years ago.
I was gonna say, from my understanding, you're back over there, across the pond, as they say.
Yeah.
And for here in the States, and I forgive me, I don't know how it is there. I can't imagine it's much better, but the public schools here are all about the LGB and the DEI and all these different programs that don't really teach fundamental education. And I think we talked to another guy from Lords of X who says the schools have like one teacher that's really just trying to get a class of 20 or so kids to pay attention.
Yeah.
And it, to me, it seems like a crazy aspect, because I know when I went to school, I never really thought of myself as smart. I was a smart aleck, but the problem is none of the teachers really paid attention unless they got upset
Yeah.
because I was trying to figure things out. And to me, public schools always seem like a, I'm trying to think of the nice word to use here. They're not the best of quality. We'll put it that way. What do you say to the dads who are trying to say, why should I homeschool or anything like that?
Yeah. So I think the bottom line with public school is it was never designed with childhood development in mind. It was never designed to be this place of higher learning. In fact, the fundamental way in which it operates is completely anathema to learning. It crushes that spirit out of all children. It's not designed to do that. It's that saying that's going around at the moment. The system, the purpose of the system is what it does.
Hmm.
And if the system produced all these very, very educated children, well-rounded children who had a zest for learning, a love for life, were prepared for life, were prepared for the real world, then we wouldn't be having this show. But
Right.
but the point is, it's the complete opposite of that. And if that's what it does, then that's what its purpose is. Because otherwise, the higher ups would be fighting tooth and nail to change what the outcome of these children were. But it's not. It's a babysitting service. It's a worker bee indoctrination camp. And I think for men, and this is one of the things I've come to terms with, and partly why I started dad schooling, is many men will default to the woman homeschooling, and that's the nature. My wife does most of it, but I find a lot of men can also zone out from it. They can just be like, right, that's my wife's thing to do, but actually, it's an extension of her mothering. It's an extension of her motherhood, when actually it's also it's a very deep extension of your fatherhood as well. For me, education is legacy. It's one of the key things that we pass down is our knowledge, our values, and our virtues. And I don't think this is a hill I will die on. You can't separate the three. When you pass down knowledge, you always pass down you always pass down values, and you always pass down virtues. They're inseparable.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you think knowledge in school is supposed to be this fair and this neutral party that passes down facts or bits of unbiased knowledge, it's not the case, and it never will be the case. And so when you are putting your children into public school, you are essentially handing over that huge part of your legacy. You are allowing the government, the state, to define your legacy for you, because they're spending 6 to 8 hours a day there. As great as a parent as you can be, and I know fantastic fathers who use the public school system, they're really intentional, they're really involved. You've still got to undo that. And you've still got to undo that messaging. Even if you want to say, well, my school doesn't push the DEI stuff. My school doesn't push inappropriate content on my children. Okay, that's great. I mean, it's just a matter of time before it happens, because the teachers, and there are great teachers, I know great teachers, they're powerless to stop it. They can't do anything. They might be great individuals and great at trying to teach those children, but if the state says jump, they have to say how high,
Hmm.
because they're paying their mortgage.
Exactly.
And so for me, it's 16,000 hours, right? 16,000 hours is the approximate amount of time our children will spend in the public education system. That is a huge amount, 16,000 hours. That is 16,000 hours in which the state is entirely in control over influencing your legacy. And to me, I would say to all men, that cannot be acceptable.
I agree.
And to the point you made before, people work. I get it. People do work. Some people have to work. And I think for a small proportion of the population, homeschooling right now is not a viable option. But I would argue tooth and nail with people that it's actually more doable for a lot more people than they care to admit.
I think it is. And I've heard plenty of different scenarios where like people will homeschool at night. Because let me ask this of you, because I know what my general schedule is with homeschooling my 6-year-old. You have kids that are different ages. I think I've seen pictures in their past the kindergarten, first grade. They're more.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah. So with that being said, how much time is actually spent homeschooling with the actual curriculum and not just going out and exploring or doing those personal interests that helps broaden their scope?
Really, if we're cutting out all the crap,
Yeah.
because kids have good days and they have bad days, and you see a lot online about you can homeschool your kids in 2 hours. You absolutely can. 2 to 3 hours a day, you can get the academics done. Sometimes it's longer than that because kids have good days and they have bad days. All right.
Right.
Sometimes they're in a fantastic mood and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they have a zest for learning and sometimes they want to be doing other things, like with the weather being nice here, going out to play. So you can absolutely get the academics done in 2 to 3 hours, and it's all about. A lot of people will talk about the word schedule, and the term I prefer to use is rhythm, right? Because I for every family that starts homeschooling, certainly ones that come out of the public school system, they're like, right, I'm going to get my schedule together. Let's have this schedule. We're going to do this, that, and then that's going to fall apart because you need to go through the process of figuring out what your family's rhythm is and finding the time. Now it's starting to get better weather here. My wife is out a lot of the week with the children, and so our rhythm has changed and our schedule has changed, and the kids do a lot of their academics over the course of 2 days in the week, and then they go to the co-op, which they do academics as well, but there's a lot more socializing there as well. They do the co-op one day, they go out all day to the local outdoor swimming pool the next day with all their friends, all the homeschool community go there. And so it really, that's the great part. There's lots of flexibility, there's lots of freedom. You can really try and fit it around most lifestyles. You can really try and fit it in. Some people do work on the weekend. Sometimes we do work on the weekend, particularly if there's an opportunity that presents itself in the week, like a grandparent says, oh, this event's on, let's go there. Can I take the kids here? Yeah, great. We'll just pick up some slack on Saturday morning. Pick up the stuff we were supposed to do. We'll just cover it Saturday morning. It's fine.
So, yeah, I mean, grabbing, and that's kind of what I was getting at, is the fact of there's always time to do it and there's always options to do it. The big problem is I think a lot of people go with that concept of, well, I'm not a trained teacher. And yeah, call me funny, but here, at least from what I'm understanding, you just need a degree in anything, and you've had to have looked at a kid once in your life and you qualify to be a teacher. So,
Yeah.
So call me funny, but I definitely think I'm more qualified as a parent than a lot of these teachers are. But I think that's a big fear that people have is I'm not qualified. I'm not that person. And, some people, they go, well, I have an un, ungodly lucky opportunity. I have a Latin Catholic school that I can send my daughter to, and all this. Why should I homeschool and all these things? So some people, you do have that rare opportunity for those rare schools, but majority of times I live by the theory of and I've said this a few times, is the student will always try to be like the master. The question is who do you want them to mimic after to be the master? Do you want it to be somebody that is born a John and calling himself Jane and wearing blue hair wig and all this? Or do you want them to mimic after you and the people that you have around them, around yourselves?
Absolutely. And I think it is a very sad scenario globally where parents feel ill-equipped to teach their own children. And I always, to those comments, yes, you're absolutely right. The teacher, to be a trained teacher, a qualified teacher, it's classroom management. That's what you're trained in. You're taught how to manage 30 children in a room for an extended period of time.
Right.
The other one, the other argument I always put forth as well is, well, you taught your children how to walk. You taught your children how to talk. Arguably some of the most complicated things people will ever do. They've gone from never walking to walking, and they've gone to speaking fluently in the English language, which is notoriously supposed to be one of the most difficult languages to learn.
Right.
Because there's so many rules and so many exceptions to the rules, and it's derivative of so many other languages. And so you did those things. For me, homeschooling is purely an extension of parenting. We use the term homeschooling to try and wrap a nice bubble around it, but it's just parenting. All parents are teachers. All parents are qualified teachers. And for those who think, well, I don't know how to do trigonometry, or I don't know how to, the chemical equation for photosynthesis. Well, firstly, no parent remembers everything they were ever taught in school, right? One of the beautiful aspects of the process is learning alongside your children. My wife is up in the night if she doesn't know the lessons, the topics she's planned for the coming week, and is researching them, is learning about them. And when they get to a particular age, certainly now my kids are reaching that age, my daughter's 10. As they grow older, you become less their teacher and more their guide. And they become less your student and more self-directed learner. That's the goal. Homeschooling is there to teach agency. So as they grow older, they actually do more work themselves. And it's less about you lecturing to them about these different topics and subjects, and actually more about helping them find the information they need to learn on their own. So you don't need to know what the chemical formula is for photosynthesis. You don't need to know how earthquakes happen or how volcanoes are formed or all these things. Actually, your children do a lot of their research independently.
Right. So now one thing you did mention earlier is legacy. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so let's dive in a bit about that as well, because one thing, like for me, example, is I believe my kids are going to learn more of our history and our values. Like you said, once you pass knowledge, you pass values and all this. Because you've talked about legacy, what do you consider the legacy that you're passing on using homeschooling as your driver?
Sure. Empowerment, agency, self-respect, pretty much everything you're taught not to embody at public school. It's really about passing down our personal family values, our personal family beliefs, and equipping our children with genuine skills, genuine knowledge, the ability to adapt to life situations, preparation for the real world. I mean, that is how we live on. It's not all these famous sculptures and architectural designs that have lasted centuries. us as dads live on through our children. And I can't think of a greater opportunity to influence that legacy, to make sure our kids, our grandkids are equipped with the knowledge, attitude, and values they need to succeed and to be happy, fulfilled human beings, and to give back to their community. There's a saying, whenever you teach your son something, you're actually teaching your grandson something as well, because he's going to pass down that as well. And I said that when they're in the public school system, they'll adopt those values and virtues, and they absolutely will. And so they're going to pass down the state's values and virtues, not your own. And in some instances, you may say, well, they're aligned, but I'd argue they're not. But
Right.
unless you're a pretty poor parent. But
Yeah.
that is such a heavy influence over your life, the future of your line. Men used to be quite find the aspect of legacy very important, and we've lost that a lot. We've grown very inward and very self-focused and very now focused, rather than thinking down the generations. But we don't solve cultural and societal problems in the here and now. They're solved gradually over generations. And if we're in charge, if we put ourselves in charge of passing those values down, that knowledge down, that's fundamental to solving those societal problems, then gradually we'll change it. But I would argue that the state's incentive is to not solve those problems. They benefit from those problems being persistent, and people putting their children into the system, churning out worker bees, paying taxes, families being unhappy. They benefit from usurping your paternal role as leader in your family. Because when you knock dad out, then who do the kids turn to? Who are the kids turning to for their problems? Who are the kids turning to get things done? The school. If your kid gets bullied in school, who do they go crying to? Who do they tell? Do they go and tell you? No, they're in school. They go and tell the teacher. They default to the teacher's leadership, much like you as parents default to the school's leadership when you're using the public school system. Your kid comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm being bullied." What do you do? "Oh, well, I'll go tell the school." Okay, well, what are you communicating in that instance? The school is in charge. I'm not. I cannot make a decision. The school will make the decision for us. And in those moments, your children are learning who's coming to help and who's not. The children are seeing you default to the leadership of the state every time. And we have horrible stories in the news of people who've continued to default to the school's leadership, and it's been met with tragic consequences.
Oh, I've seen quite a few stories, in fact, that just makes me cringe, and literally showing my wife some of these messages. Like, my wife was against homeschooling before we started, and after seeing all these different things in the news, because she's not big into all the political and all these different things, so she doesn't follow that line of stuff. So when I started showing her these, they're like, homeschooling is definitely a much better option. And yeah, it's crazy the things you see and what so have you. I mean, what do you find, like, for me, my son didn't know what a bully was when he was asked in his karate class, because I never thought to have to teach him to sit, like you say, stop it to a bully. To me, it never came up as a thought. I mean, the kids around him aren't bullying him. Most homeschooling kids are not typically the bullying type. Mind you, that's most times. There are bullies in every area. So, but let's dig into a bit of dad schooling while I have you. I think I have you for another 5 or 10 minutes. In dad schooling, what do dads get out of that that's going to help them? Because right now I just looked at it. It's like 247 members in that Discord alone.
274.
Was it? Oh, I had it backwards. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, 274. My dyslexia got the best of me. But the 274 members in there, and most likely it's going to grow to over 300 pretty soon, I imagine.
Yes.
So with all that, what do dads find when they go there that's going to help them? Because I found tons of stuff, but I can only say so much that's going to make sense to people.
Sure. So, I mean, we basically have sort of like two populations in the dad schooling community. We have the dads who are homeschooling,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the dads who are considering homeschooling, who are open to the idea, that it's still fresh in their mind, and they exist within the community but separately. And so, if you're in pool A and homeschooling, I mean, both populations find the first thing you find is community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think first, that's lacking across the male space, full stop. There are no dads in these spaces. And I have checks and balances in place, and I have to approve everyone that joins, because we have had a couple of women try to join and moms try to join. And I've politely messaged them and said, like, this is a dad's only space, because men need men's only spaces, because the atmosphere is different, the environment's different types of things are talked about. They interact differently. And so the first thing you'll find is community. You'll find just lots of dads in there having a conversation, and not just about homeschooling. It's just a space to have a conversation. People talk about homesteading. People talk about their kids generally, the events they're going to, accomplishments their kids have done, just vacations they're on. So that's the first thing you'll find. And then if we're talking homeschooling, people are there offering advice all the time. There's loads of questions asked all the time from new homeschoolers, from people who are considering homeschooling, from veteran homeschoolers. They're asking about curriculums. They're asking, has anyone tried this before? Does anyone know about a curriculum that incorporates X, Y, and Z? Does anyone know about a faith-based curriculum that teaches this subject? And people are just putting resources into it as well. When they come across things, curriculums they've used, events that are happening in the area, they post it in the Discord channel and say, look, just so you know, guys, I've not tried this, but here's a free trial that's going on for this curriculum, or here's a discount for these books, these worksheets. And then we just have stories, and people sharing stories, people sharing laughs, people sharing heartwarming moments. And we have another piece for paid membership, and on there we also have our own private conversations as well, but we also have calls, fortnightly calls in there, and they're great. They're fantastic. We've had a couple now, and speaking to guys from all across the world, lots of US guys in there, but all across the world, it really adds that extra element to it, in which the communication is much deeper. We're asking off the fly about advice, about things that come to mind and the time. It's a real sense of community, a real sense of brotherhood that's beginning to foster in there. And I think that's a vital component to being a healthy man and a fulfilled man, is that sense of brotherhood, is accessing that type of community. But also, it's just empowering. It's empowering for dads, and that's one of the mission statements of dad schooling, is empowering dads to take control of their legacy. It's really trying to shift gear in dads' minds to take this front seat in determining what their legacy looks like and taking back control. Like I said before, it's reclaiming fatherhood, and by extension then helping your wife reclaim motherhood and restoring the family. And it's really giving people the guts to do it, and helping people realize, look, it looks scary, but actually there's all these dads here that are already doing it. Homeschooling is, if you find it scary, really isn't that scary. All these people are doing it, and all these people are here to help you do it.
Right, which makes sense. And Mr. Pancake's been quiet because, well, he doesn't really homeschool much. So, but
yeah, I've been super busy, and my mind's been all over the place this whole past couple weeks. So my apologies for the extra quietness. But yeah, I don't homeschool. I guess I'm kind of the devil's advocate in this. conversation. I'm the type I'm all about homeschool. I'd be right on top of it. My wife, not so much. She believes in the idea of homeschool. She just doesn't want to have to deal with it. You know what I mean? She feels as though it's an issue that she would have to deal with. Because our kid is like, she's not, most people say high functioning, they mean like autistic. She's not autistic by no means. She's high functioning as in she functions on a different level than the majority of people. She's fucking freaking intelligence is like beyond where I can go. Not to mention she sleeps like 3 hours a day and that's it. She is 100 miles an hour all day long. And the only way to get her to focus is outside sources. So whenever she leaves us, she learns because I don't know why, she has this deeper like feeling that she needs to please other people more than she does us. When she's with us, she's comfortable. She's comfortable zone, family, friends, having fun, she's goofing off, she can get in trouble a little bit, it's not a big deal. When she's in front of other people, yes sir, yes ma'am, stuff like that. So she learns a little bit because she sits and pays attention, sometimes. But I mean, I'm extremely anti-public school, like heck no. As well as like most, like Eric said there, majority of private schools are garbage. They say one thing and do another. But the private school that we have our kid in is, it's extremely unique. It's a classical education style. There's literally like 2 in the entire country. And they are like top 3 schools of all the schools in the entire country. This one is top 3. It's very Christian and very conservative style. They're all about capitalism, freedom of thinking, and they operate the school in a manner that is basically like how you described a co-op.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that because every employee and teacher and every person that has anything to do with the school whatsoever is a parent, and their children go to that school. They do not take a single penny from any outside sources other than the parents and students and whatever else like that. Everything is internally funded and operated. Everything is done in-house. They literally don't take a penny from states, companies, corporations, donors, nothing, $0. So that was one thing that attracted us to it, is it was basically homeschool, but not, you know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of times they involve families and stuff. So you can go to it and do kind of stuff, kind of like a co-op, you can half homeschool, half not type of deal. So.
Yeah. And if it's one thing I'm fully behind, it's obviously homeschooling, but my, I'm all about trying to get fathers to be intentional about their children's education, because the biggest problem I find is that so many parents just default to the public school system. They default to it, they abdicate to its leadership, they see it as not a part of parenting. They see it as, right, you are now the school's problem. That is their time with you. That is your deal. And
that's
what I would
kind of
want
my wife's thing
is for parents and fathers particularly to be just intentional about the education and intentional about how they're solving that problem, whether they're engaging a private school or one of these other different types of school systems that exist, or whether they're homeschooling, just to make sure that you're involved, you're not, and being an intentional father along the way.
Yeah. My wife kind of wants that extra time for herself, so because I'm technically a work from home employee for my company, but I have an office in town, so I leave to get away so I can talk to the phone and stuff. So for her, she wants that time to herself so she can clean, prepare the house, and all that stuff. So I understand, but I would prefer her to be in this school, just because it's an amazing school. It really is. As far as public school, No, I mean, I feel like I'd go to jail. I'd be in jail like within a week.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be strangling somebody and, I mean, stabbing people in the head and stuff. Like there's a line for me, and effing with my kid is it. You know what I mean? Especially with the LGBABC crap. I'm
Exactly.
sorry. I don't care what you do. You put that on kids. No, you die pretty much. That's a big thing for some reason in America. I don't know how it is overseas. I've heard a little bit, but over here it's like, I don't know why, but it's like blown up. Like the cool thing to do is to be a dude and blow a dude. I don't like, get away from me. So let's teach kids how to do it too. So that's like way out of the scope for me in going to the public school.
Well,
So that stuff ain't happening.
let's do this. So, Alex, like we've discussed, you have to get off. So, with that being said, if somebody wants to find out about your Discord group or want to ask you questions, where do you prefer them to reach out to you to get to you and be able to talk to you a bit?
So my biggest presence is on X, or Twitter, as I still call it.
Right.
At Fathers Reforged is my handle. That's where you'll find the link to the Discord server. That's where you'll find me, more reliably at least. And that's sort of the main hub where everything is. And I'm more than happy for anyone to reach out in the DMs, more than happy for anyone to jump into dad schooling. There's only so much advice I can give the guys in dad schooling. It's all different perspectives, all different family situations, and all different countries even. So if you have any more, if you're considering it, if you have queries, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'm on X.
Sounds perfect. And Mr. Pancakes, where do people reach out to you at?
Yeah, the usual, all those social medias, Facebook, Instagram's kind of weird right now. LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever. True Social, that's one of the bigger ones. I'm on there quite a bit. That's where I started. So, and then obviously the website, so pancakesforyourdad.com. That's all the normal stuff. You can find all the stuff we got going on there. I did just add the page for the woodworking page, so you can download all the individual woodworking plans and things like that. It's all free. It's just it's in the resources page. Just go there and download away. There should be 9, and then there's a tips book as well. I will say I'm in the Fatherhood Reforged thing on Discord, and though I'm not a homeschooler, I will say there's a lot of information in there. It does break down by age and class and stuff like that. So it is definitely good. I recommend it. Me not being somebody that's in homeschooling, it's a lot to learn there for sure.
And of course, Call with Dads. You go to callwithdads.com. We're on social media, Twitter, X, True Social, which I haven't really been able to keep up with that, Facebook, LinkedIn. And you can watch the videos on YouTube or Rumble, and audio, of course. If you're listening to this anywhere you find it, I try to be there so you can hear this. With that being said, we're going to let you go because Alex has to go. I highly suggest you to find him, look into him. If you're questioning homeschooling or you want to get more information, he is a fantastic resource, or he can direct you to the resource that you probably need. So reach out to Alex. You won't regret it. Other than that, Alex, thank you for being here. This is the end of the conversation for everyone else, and we're going to end it. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, man.